So first of all, I definitely wholeheartedly want to thank Ish for his work in making this happen with Vanessa Callback and Natalie Richards. They are the folks that brought Project Destined to us today. So thank the three of you. And Natalie and Vanessa will be your hosts for today's call. I want to share with you real briefly kind of some of our goals as a regional task force. As a regional task force, we're focusing on four key areas. The first one being diversity training and education, which is headed by Valerie King. And today kind of fits into two worlds, both that world as well as community give back initiatives, which is headed by Ish Kennedy, which you'll see on the screen, which is all about helping our local communities, which again, KW Kids Can, Quantum Leap could be a big part of that as we plug into that. Our third area of focus as a regional task force is minorities and leadership, which is geared by headed by Leslie Cato of our Metuchen Market Center. And the fourth, also very important category is our wealth builders, which is diversity training, education, and helping especially people, minorities, and the Black community build wealth at a high level. So this is kind of the first of a series of different events that we'll be hosting over the next few weeks. A lot of it on training, on community awareness, giving back to kind of propel our purpose forward in a huge way. And I'm super, super excited to have Cedric Bobo here from Project Destined. Now, if you don't know Project Destined, projectdestined.com is where you can go for more information. Their mission statement is to transform minority youth into owners and stakeholders in their communities in which they live, work, and play. They're an established national organization that we're exploring and looking forward to a potential partnership with. So without further ado, I'm going to pass this to Natalie and Vanessa, your host for today's call. Good to see you guys.
Thank you, Michael. Good morning, everyone. We're so excited that we could get together and have Cedric with us. This has been quite a while in the making ever since our fearless leader, Gary Keller, gave us a call to action. We have responded and looked for ways that we can create impact in our community. And when we came across Project Destined, we thought, here is an entity that has established itself in this space. It's developed a curriculum, it's developed marketing, and it's developed relationships, and it's developed a way to measure success, and they've had measurable success. On today's call, what we'd like to do is we'll open the floor next to Cedric, where he will give a presentation. We invite you that as you have questions, to put the questions in the chat box. Vanessa will be tracking the questions, and when we open up the Q&A session, we will respond to those questions then. So with no further ado, I'd just like to introduce Cedric. Cedric is the CEO and co-founder of Project Destined. It's a social impact vehicle that trains urban youth and military veterans to be owners and stakeholders of the communities in which they live, work, and play. Prior to founding Project Destined, Cedric spent over 20 years as an investor and investment banker, including over 10 years at the Carlyle Group, where he committed over $2 billion in equity capital. In 2015, Cedric was named the top 10 powerful Black people on Wall Street you should know. Prior to Carlyle, he worked at DLJ Merchant Banking in London and McCown de Leo. He is also the co-founder of the Charter Board Partners, a nonprofit focused on governance in the charter school sector. Cedric also serves on the District of Columbia's Office of Public Charter School Financing and Support Credit Committee and Beauvoir, the National Cathedral Elementary School. Cedric received his MBA from Harvard Business School and a BSME summa cum laude from the University of Tennessee. Please join me in welcoming Cedric Bobo to our call today.
Natalie, thank you so much. And I was looking at the chat and I saw, good morning, Natalie, you look beautiful. And I was like, this is the right place for me to be. I love the energy already. Well, it's such a pleasure to be with you all. I've heard so much about the company from Natalie, and it's just a pleasure to spend some time. I'm going to share a visual, if I can, while I'm chatting, because I think it'll just give you a sense of what we're trying to build and what we could do in partnership with you all. But as Natalie shared, I mean, at our heart, what we're trying to do is do two things. One, to create a diverse pipeline of talent into real estate. I look at the pictures on this screen, and you're what real estate should look like, right? I mean, the diversity of people and personalities is incredible. The second thing that we're trying to do is, we're trying to build an ownership mentality in communities across the country because we think ownership changes how you see yourself. So I'm a big proponent of that. As Natalie shared, I grew up in northern Mississippi, and I had a great grandfather who bought 100 acres of land just after the Civil War. And so I grew up in the backdrop in a farming community where my great grandfather was an owner, and that's all I wanted to be when I grew up, was I wanted to own something. But like so many young people, I didn't know how to do that. I mean, I just didn't, I knew what it meant conceptually, but I didn't have a clear path. Project Destined is my way of kind of creating a path. My own background, just to give you all some more details, I grew up there, studied engineering in school, and then I got really lucky that I spent a year abroad at Oxford, and I played rugby with guys who were doing investment banking. I came to New York, spent a summer on Wall Street, and I heard about this whole business of private equity that I didn't know that there were people who bought companies with other folks' money. And I can in particular can remember calling my mom saying, there are a whole bunch of people who buy stuff with other folks' money and are living a pretty good life. And my mother was in shock. I remain in shock by that fact. But I really just kind of fell in love with that idea. So I spent the next 20 years, really buying companies for a living. But in 2005, I bought my first residential property. I ultimately rented it out, but I got the bug of this idea of, you can own in communities across the country. And so all during my time at Carlisle, I was buying residential real estate on the side. And so starting in 2015, I set out to become an entrepreneur, and I wanted to combine two things. One, my love of real estate, but also education. And at the time when I began that journey, I was fortunate to have a very good friend in Deborah Lee who ran BET at the time, and she invited us out to the BET Awards, and I saw this movie about Detroit. And I looked at, the movie was about how the city had been underinvested for years, but now there was all kinds of new capital that was going into it, but yet there was very limited diversity. There weren't many folks who had the skill set to take advantage of it. And frankly, didn't have a lot of capital to really try and rebuild the residential marketplace in Detroit. And so I flew there, partnered with the mayor's office, trained 15 charter school students at the Jalen Rose Leadership Academy. And I had them pitch me on ideas for buying single family residential assets and multifamily assets. And I would basically create these little mini competitions where they pitched me on ideas, and the best idea would win capital. And had a bunch of press after we bought some assets. I then did it in Memphis, and then I probably got the luckiest break. I took my wife and Deborah Lee to a J-Lo concert. We go backstage. They do not invite us. They invite Deborah Lee. But they're so shocked that I'm there. They actually Google me, probably for security reasons, to make sure I just wasn't some weirdo, right? And they see Project Destined, and they see Carlisle, and they take me over to meet A-Rod, and we agree to partner with him and Jennifer to launch in Miami only 3 months later. And that gave us our big break. I mean, we then got a lot of visibility, but I think what caught people's attention, was the desire for real estate to build a pathway, but to not always have the partnerships help them execute. And so I think what Alex and Jen saw, and what so many saw later on, was like, we're very good at our business. We know how to run a business. We're not necessarily the best in the world at creating diverse pipelines. And so I think what folks saw in us was a process-driven business that could support them in building that pathway. So that's what we've done. So we've done it across 8 markets now, 7 US, as well as now London, which is the 8th market. And we've trained, as of now, almost 1,000 students. What you should know is in the first 3 years, my wife and I funded everything, both the nonprofit and all the real estate we purchased. And we trained about 300-400 students. I mean, we'll train 600-700 this year alone. But our process has always been the same, which is that we find that what our marketplace in real estate suffers from is just indifference around diversity. And what I mean by that is, when I got my first private equity job, I remember going and sitting in a seat, and it was as though people thought because they paid me a lot of money that I was going to naturally be successful. They just left me to my own devices. And that's not the case, because you need reps in building the right skills. In converse, when I took my first job in London, I arrived there, and there was a guy who said, you're going to be really successful, and I'm going to make sure you get the reps you need. So he taught me financial modeling. He taught me writing, critical thinking. And as a result, I was really successful, not because I was brilliant, but because they gave me the right reps. And so we've actually tried to build that, into our processes. So our students, when they come into our program, they're placed on teams of 10. Every team is backed by a corporate sponsor. Those corporate sponsors and those students go through a series of rotations and curriculum. I'll describe them to you later. But they basically compete against other corporate teams. I almost call it like NASCAR for real estate, where you'll have, a team Brookfield or a team Westfield or a team, you name it. And the idea is that they're going through a process of competing, and we remove indifference, because when you and I are on the same team, if we look different, but we're representing the same brand, we're glued together because we're competing against the other folks. And so we try and remove indifference through competition. So our students go through training, then they go through competitions, and then we work with them if they're in college to go on and secure, internships and jobs. Or if they're military veterans, we try and support them in using their VA loans to buy their first asset. But the whole idea for us is really creating a pathway in partnership with great companies like yours. In terms of the way the process sort of works, is that, we built an e-learning platform. It's graffiti animation based, it's self-paced. Every student, all 1,000 of them, go through that e-learning platform, and it helps them build language. And the language is really key to me, because I think that so many folks don't pursue real estate because there's a lot of jargon. And so you've got to break that down in a way that meets them where they are. Our e-learning platform works to do that. We then go through a series of live courses where you're matched on teams. And whether your team is analyzing a single family opportunity or a multifamily opportunity, the whole idea is that you're working with, a Keller team, and you're analyzing a local deal with those professionals supporting you. And then every 2 weeks, you're competing against other teams. We also have an active speaker series, because what we find is that while the competition exposes you to the process of real estate, all of us probably fall in love with real estate because there was an individual who inspired us. So we have a bi-weekly speaker series where we bring in folks who do all kinds of things in real estate, but we try and identify people who really have a story to tell that can connect with our students and inspire them to explore real estate beyond the time they spend time in our course. This is our typical curriculum. We start out with telling a story. We think that so many students lack the ability to articulate their personal narrative. So we actually hire actors and actresses, and we do a course on storytelling, because all of us, we're telling stories about ourselves, about neighborhoods, about communities, about cities, and we want to teach students that skill. We then go into a course on business fundamentals. So whether you go on to pursue real estate or something else, we want to teach you the profit motive through business. And so we take you through market research, business planning, and financial modeling, because those are relevant no matter what you pursue in life. And then we go into real estate. I mean, today, a lot of our supporters are on the multifamily side, but I will tell you, I spent time with Lennar yesterday, and there's billions of capital that's trying to understand single family residential. And so it gets us really excited to expand our curriculum to deepen our knowledge and exposure of our students to that marketplace. But this is what we do. We do it all day long. We're really passionate about it. We're super process driven. And what's key to us in all of this is scale. Training 10 to 15 students a year doesn't increase diversity in real estate. Training thousands per year is what changes it. And the example we always use is the NBA basketball didn't always look as it does today. I mean, it looked very much like real estate in the 1950s, frankly. But what happened is, Michael Jordan comes along, David Stern comes along, and they put basketball in the hands of youth in Nigeria and Croatia and Harlem at a very early age, and you begin to see the best talent move forward. That's what we're trying to do in real estate, is that give kids access to real estate early, and then let them get a chance to play and be active in the sector. So that's my formal remarks, but I'm super excited to answer any questions about the work that we do.
Well, thank you, Cedric. That was a great comprehensive overview. We appreciate that. We do have quite a few questions. Vanessa, do we have any questions that have come in through the chat that we'd like to start with?
Not as of yet, but I'd welcome everyone to start plugging away. I know that we had a couple questions. Okay, here we are.
Yeah.
So I guess one of the first questions I have for you, Cedric, well, thank you for coming and joining us today, sharing your background. I'm curious, in what capacity do you see us potentially partnering with you? I'm sure in preparation for this call, you've had some ideas come together. So curious to see your thoughts on that.
Yeah.
Obviously very preliminary.
Yeah, of course, of course. I mean, we've been fortunate to have some great firms support our work, but I think there are very few who have the breadth and presence of Keller. And so, what gets me excited is that we launch in cities, and we try and launch with best of class partners. And so, I think there are two opportunities with you all. One, to identify markets where you've got great interest in growing, whether that's New York City, or whether that's Newark, or whether that's Birmingham, you name it. We want to be in every major market in the country. I think the second is really working with a respected partner to expand the knowledge of our students in the residential market. I think that that's a big opportunity for students, and certainly in the time we're in, where so much of that can be disrupted. I think it's a great time for students to begin to understand those markets, and frankly, how they can not be lost in terms of the market, but be knowledgeable and take advantage of opportunity. So I think there's a chance to expand geographically, but also to deepen our curriculum, given some of the great work and training that you all do.
Okay. So on that note,
Mm.
your curriculum presently has a commercial focus. How
Mm.
did you develop that curriculum? How did we
Mm.
come to being where you are, and what resources did you rely on in developing that curriculum?
Of course. I mean, so we built it organically. So for the first 3 years, we didn't allow one single donor. We funded everything. And it's because I didn't want to make mistakes on someone else's dime. I mean, my experience in private equity taught me that sponsors are best to help you scale. So for the first 3 years, we built the curriculum brick by brick. Now, luckily, my partner and I both had backgrounds in investing and in real estate. He was a longtime developer. His dad ran city planning for DC, so he had a deep-rooted knowledge of real estate. And I've been investing on my own for 10 years. And so we had practical knowledge, and we made a point of not allowing the curriculum to be overly theoretical, but highly applied. So the way our program works is that, and by the way, we do it now. We teach everything from 7th and 8th graders in Durham, North Carolina. We have a middle school program, to college students at historically Black colleges and other community colleges around the country. And the model we've always seen work is teach a student a little bit of knowledge and then make them apply it and compete, right? That's always been our formula. So we'll spend one session on property analysis and market research. We're walking you through an income statement. And by the way, that applies to whether you have single family or multifamily. It's the same kind of gross rent, net rent, operating expenses, and NOI. And then we make you quickly apply it. So with my high school students, a typical class is in the morning, I'll teach you the foundations of a P&L, right? And then I'll have you go into breakout rooms, study a live deal. I typically start with 2 unit or 4 units, like small deals they can understand. I have them quickly put together, answer 3 questions. They do a pitch for me. They talk about what is the building, where is it located? 2, tell me what cash flow is produced if you were to own it. And then 3rd, tell me what concerns you about the property or the neighborhood. And that's not a multifamily concept or a single family concept. That's just a concept of actually doing good business, right? And our view is that we just try and get you in the mode of you teaching back to us after we give you a snapshot into real estate. And we do that repeatedly. So by the time you get to the end of our course, we can give you an entire deal to look at and you can present it back. And we've been doing that for 4 years now with great success with our community.
Mhm. You've spoken a bit about wanting to scale, and I'm aware that you recently did a partnership with Rebney. You
Mm.
have a relationship with the SUNY schools. Where are you sourcing your students, and what role could you see us playing in that
Yeah.
interplay between feeder sources and Project Destined?
I always tell potential supporters the first step is to determine whether your focus is on college or high school. College is important because it's an immediate feeder into your business. But I think what we all know is high school is where you really begin to change the industry by building a big talent funnel. So those are the 2 goals. What we typically do, for example, I'll use Durham, North Carolina. We just launched there with the University of North Carolina, but also with the Historically Black College, North Carolina Central. But we also have a high school program, a middle school program. Now, Graystar is the sponsor of the program, and they're focused on college students because they want to show a quick ROI by hiring some of the talent. What we do is that we go in and find other sponsors who care about the high school program or middle school program. That's always our approach. You need the entire funnel, right, to make it work and to really change, real estate. I would say for you all, it's first picking a market that really is exciting for you all in terms of maybe you want to deepen your presence in a market, or maybe you want to go into a new market, right? And then we work with you all to identify the school partner. We have lots of partners now, whether it's PGIM or Hines or others, who are very much focused on historically Black colleges. So we're building an entire program now out of supporting our sponsors, working with HBCUs to support them, because many of them don't have real estate programs. So their students just don't have, they have great academic track records, they don't have a natural path into real estate. So what we're doing now with PGIM and others is that we're identifying historically Black colleges who want to expand their real estate or deepen their real estate offerings, and we're using our program to be a connection point. And I could see something with you all as well, because imagine some of those students really thinking about entrepreneurial opportunities, but also full-time employment opportunities, with Keller.
Right. Okay. We definitely know that any sort of initiative requires funding. And what would be the financial commitment? I mean, the great thing is we are working with a large company, and there's various levels that we can access. What would be the financial commitment for a large scale partnership?
Yeah. So the way to think about our program is that, ultimately we're an education company in the sense of our course is 40 hours. It's like a 3-credit-hour college course. That's what we're putting students through. And so the way we structure it is when we launch into a new market, we try and identify one sponsor who can support 20 students across 3 years. Again, 20 students per year, I should say, right? Because we don't want to go into a market for 1 year and then we're gone. You just ruin your reputation and credibility, right? So what we really love is that we can find a partner, launch a market with us. Typically it's $50,000 per year to launch a new market with us, and we actually commit that amount for 3 years. If it's in an existing city, we're fine for you to support a team of students with $25,000 a year. But I think the excitement with you all is finding new markets to launch, particularly with HBCUs, or deepening our presence in some existing markets.
Okay. Awesome. What do you see would be the commitment level for agents working with Project Destined? And where is it that we would be inserted, not just theoretically, but actually giving our agents a hands-on opportunity to get involved?
Yes, I'm going to share my screen again with you just to give you a sense of the way we're very much in the process, because process is the only way that we scale. So this is the typical program for us. It's a 10-week program, and you'll see that the program schedule, weeks 1 and 2 is largely onboarding, where students are completing our e-learning platform and they're getting an initial lecture on just real estate generally. And then students go through 4 2-week rotations. Every rotation covers a different topic. So the first one is property analysis and market research. Then we'll go through kind of value add, design and construction, because in most cases we're looking at some form of rehab. And then we do something on like raising capital, and then presentation training. And so the way we structure each rotation is that there's a lecture, there's office hours with mentors, there's an executive speaker series, and then there's a pitch competition. Where you all will be most active is that we run all of the lectures generally, just to make sure they're consistent. The office hours are where you all will carry a lot of the load, because students do our lecture, but then they're applying what they just learned to a live opportunity. And they stay with the same opportunity the entire 10 weeks, but they're taking it, they're applying it to a duplex or a single family home, and they're putting together typically 4 slides. When they show up at your mentoring session, they're spending 2 hours with you where they're presenting their draft deck, and you're giving them feedback, both on the storytelling, the content, some of the technical areas. And then they're taking that feedback and they're going across the weekend, they're improving the deck. They come back the following week and 2 things happen. First, an executive speaker series. We may have one of your executives talk about your business and the marketplace and what's happening. And then there's a pitch competition at the end of the week. That same formula repeats 4 times. Typically in a given city, we'll have 2 to 3 sponsors. And so you'll have other folks who are participating in the executive speaker series, but also mentoring other teams that you're competing against. That's the typical playbook. It is highly structured. Those office hours are every 2 weeks. They're 2 hours long. They're scheduled in advance. We can adjust the schedule if you need, but we try and provide a ton of infrastructure so you're not organizing it yourself. The other piece is that on that team of 10 that you're mentoring, every single team has a program manager who's an alum of our program. They understand the role of mentors, they understand the roles of the students, and they're with you every step of the way. They send weekly briefings of what's going on. And their job is to really make sure you can be successful with those 10 students.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Is that clear?
Yes, it is. It is. We've got a question in the chat.
Mm.
Kay asked, what do you do with the student presentations? Are they used in real life?
Yeah, so I mean, so for our students right now, they're always studying live deals, and there's a mixture. I'll use Durham and DC right now. So our Durham teams are backed by 5 different companies. 4 of those are actually live deals with those companies. Some that are closing next month, and then one case PGIM because they're more on the financing side. They're not sourcing deals. It's a deal that I'm personally interested in investing in that they're analyzing. So every single deal is always live. We've invested, we've personally bought about 300 units over the course of the last couple of years. We bought a hotel with a company in Detroit. So in every case, we're working to actually execute on the deals. And with the corporates, these are all live, active opportunities where they own the asset and are developing it.
Wow, wow. Tez asked the question, is there an element of master networking in the curriculum?
It's well, first of all, maybe describe master networking because I'm on the phone with a bunch of, I think I'm decent, but I'm talking to a set of folks that are probably the best in the world. So I want to make sure I understand the term by your definition.
Okay, Tez, I'm gonna unmute you. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, she's unmuted now.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, perfectly.
Yeah. Hi, Cedric. Thanks for coming. So just mastering networking, the art of networking.
Oh
So
yeah, cool.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I thought you were giving a defined term. I was like, is that a masterclass term? No. So no, there's a huge networking component to it, and it's on multiple levels. First, as a student, you've got 9 other people you didn't know before, and you've got to figure out a way to work with them. We're then layering on top of that, you've got 3 to 4 mentors that are on that corporate team. Then you'll notice if you follow us on LinkedIn, if you follow me on LinkedIn or anyone in our network, you'll see that our students are actively posting on LinkedIn. And we do it for a couple of reasons. I tell our students that the world has slowed down because of COVID, but you all haven't. I mean, you're backed by some of the largest real estate firms in the world in the middle of a pandemic. And so I'm actively running social media competitions where they're storytelling using LinkedIn. And the goal is to tag all of our community on a recurring basis, because what happens is that I always tell students is that people sometimes come to me and they say they have lack of access to capital. And I always tell them what you have is lack of a network that has capital, right? And so you got to start from an early age in building a network of people who have capital, who have faith in you. And in my opinion, most of the people who back us are best in the world at what they do. If you tag them after they come speak to us or after they mentor you, they're going to accept your message. And now you got someone who's in real estate, who's great at what they do, who knows other folks who have capital. And now that same issue shouldn't exist, right? I mean, like, you still got to work your butt off, but the whole idea is you can build relationships now using tools like LinkedIn because we're putting these folks in front of you. The other thing that we do is when we have these competitions, the judges come from all kinds of companies, right? So last week we had executive director of the Los Angeles Lakers because they had just won the championship, obviously. We had folks from Tishman Speyer, Brooksfield. We have all of these firms. And again, I run a social media challenge where you got to tag these folks and you should be asking to connect with them. And so the whole idea is to trick you into networking to where it doesn't become like this thing that's like you're the weirdo at the party, but more you're strategically thinking about how do I engage with people and tell my story through them.
Great. Martine asked, and I'll tie it to Dee's question. Martine's question was, what age group do you work with? And Dee asked, what is the process to enroll youth and young adults in the program?
Yeah, so we have one middle school program in Durham, but we're working with Freddie Mac and others to launch a few new ones starting in DC. We've got a number of high school programs around the country. And our high school programs, I think what's important is that they're all taught during the school day. Our current high school programs are taught between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. at the schools, right? So you're right after math or science, which I think is really important because you have mind share. And then we have a range of college programs. Typically, you can enroll in our program if your school supports our work, right? So when we come to color, for example, we're going to ask you your preference on where you want to support. and you may say we want to support Spelman College or Morehouse College or North Carolina Central, we're going to work with that school. So if you're one of those schools, we market both through the faculty as well as through social media. We got a pretty standard marketing package that we use. And then we're pretty active on LinkedIn and Instagram about telling the story. We have tons of video to show you what a day in the life of the experience is like. And then it comes down to really you telling your story. When we accept students, it's not based upon just your typical GPA, but really your interest and passion for real estate, because this is 40 hours of training, and you gotta like it, you gotta want it. And frankly, if you don't want it, we're gonna remove you very quickly, because I'll say a church of the anointed. I mean, like we're folks that we all like real estate. And we're not going to have that diluted by people who are kind of on the fence. We're going to quickly focus in on the people who care, because that's reaffirming. The worst thing in the world is if you have someone diluting that when you have some insecurities about your career. So we quickly find a way to remove students who aren't fully committed, mainly through a lot of hard work. But the folks who are in, they're all in.
Okay. Robin asked, are you in smaller cities? And I'll tie it to Ish's question, which is how many participants are required to start the group on this journey?
Yeah, so I mean, I want to be in every city in the world. I mean, so like, my ambitions are not small. We'll go somewhere small, somewhere big. I mean, I'm fairly indifferent. The key for us is that we've got to have a corporate partner who's going to back at least 20 students for 3 years, right? I mean, 20 students a year. What I will not do is I won't go into Birmingham and be there for 1 year and then I go away, because during that year, I'm going to be engaging with the mayor, the city council, et cetera. And I'm not going to show up a year later saying, we're not coming back. That I won't do. So as long as there's a corporate sponsor who will partner with us in supporting 20 students a year, we're open for launching that market. Because what we find is that what you need is someone to lead the parade. If we go into Birmingham with you all and we do a great job with great academic partners, other folks will jump on board, real estate, non-real estate. And so our goal is just to have staying power so we can be there to tell that story on a sustained basis.
Excellent. So Dana, in her comment, she's asked for your contact information, which we're happy to share. And she's asking about having you tune into something called Quantum Leap. We have spoken, it's a program that was developed here at Keller Williams. I'm going to ask Dana to unmute to talk a little bit about Quantum Leap. But in our thinking, in our sub-task force, was the possibility of actually being able to deliver Quantum Leap to your students. So Dana, if you could speak a little bit about Quantum Leap and give Cedric a little overview there.
Sure. Thank you, Natalie. Hi, everyone. Hi, Cedric. Wow. Thanks a million. I will say this is certainly the most inspiring, well-created, polished, powerful ventures I've seen in quite a long time. And I'm proud to say I've been aligned with KW for 15 consecutive years. So thank you for being here, Cedric. And I essentially, yes, I would love to extend an invitation to you, your team, anyone who you would like in that digital Zoom room in the month of November. We are leading Quantum Leap for Kids. It's also Brandy is here. She's a leader of QL for Kids. And essentially it's a several-hour course that allows youth to really invest the time and focus on creating a mission statement for their lives. It talks about how you can't literally save your way to long-term wealth and create a plan for their own generational wealth to really connect with what is meaningful to them. And so I love how it seems like you've peppered in, there's a couple of models, tools, and systems that we KW leaders have. And one of them is the Millionaire Real Estate Investor book. And it's a business manual. It's how to leverage real estate as a long-term tool to build wealth. And so it's, I feel like what you're driving home and your curriculum and your platform is so robust and so powerful that first, I just really wanted to give you a high five and really compliment you. High five. And so, yes, I want to extend an invitation to our QL digital event to you and your team, and then also just continue to understand how your, I guess, graduates or how the youth participants, how you're creating leaders for life. What comes after the course? Are they tethered into your ecosystem through, communication? How do you kind of make it sticky like glue and retain them in terms of tracking their progress and moving forward? How is that tracked, or do you do that?
Yeah, no, we track it. I mean, I think like most organizations, I mean, the most efficient way is proven to be surveys, because you just got to get students to engage. So we do regular surveys. But the other thing is that someone, the NBA has been a partner for a long time, and I'm always asking them about, how do you build a brand that stays connected to a unique urban community? And one of the things they told me is that you got to create stars beyond you being the star, right? And so one of the things that we've done is that you'll see it if you look at some of our LinkedIn posts, is that we hire about 20 of our students every year to come work for us. So my entire staff is former students. I don't have a single person that's not a former student. And so if you're a new student in the program, when you get welcome to it, the welcome doesn't come from me. It comes from a program manager who just did the program 6 months ago or 3 months ago, and they're welcoming you, and they have a command and a confidence that inspires you. And so you're creating these other stars. So we're training 300 students this semester, and it's being run by 25 alums. We've got 20 program managers and then 5 city managers, and they're coordinating all the activity. And we're trying to empower them, because we need students to both enjoy the education, but also see themselves in those students, so they can kind of get promoted to a program manager. So in probably 2 weeks, after students have gone through a couple rotations, we'll put an application for our program manager program, and they'll get interviewed by existing students. And you're just doing this thing to where, to me, every student I train should produce another 10 students. And so I'm trying to create that multiplier effect just through training. And if I don't eat my own soup, like how can I encourage someone else to hire my talent, right? So I love when our students are taking commands of these Zooms, and they're leading the conversation. That's the number one way in which we try and retain, is by giving you more work, frankly.
Well, imagine, there's so many similarities. I know this Zoom room understands. Everything you just walked us through is very, very, very Keller-ish. So that's really outstanding. Yeah, be wary of the naked one offering you a shirt, right? So you're hiring your own talent. That's so inspiring. Right. Thank you again. And I just friended you on LinkedIn. So
oh, fantastic. Oh, well, that's great. Now, thank you all.
Dana. So Dee, you asked a question about the success rates of students and stories of students who go through the program. And Brandy, you also asked about the end game for students. Do they graduate and stay connected with Project Destined? I'm hoping that Cedric's his response just now kind of responds to that. We had the question of, Cedric, what markets are you looking to expand to? And Adolph asked, where are you currently getting the properties from? Would Keller be able to play a role in sourcing, providing you with inventory?
Yeah, and so a couple of things. So in the spring, we're already in conversations to launch Chicago, going back into Miami in a scaled way, and then really building up Baltimore, and then potentially New York. So, but again, I love business development. So there's no market, as long as we have the right partner, that I'm not interested in, because we should be everywhere. The need is everywhere, frankly. The second question, I forget. Remind me of the second question.
Could Keller Williams be useful in sourcing properties?
Yeah, so ironically, it's so funny. So when we launched in Los Angeles, we focused on South LA, and Keller Williams, I think, provided every single deal that we looked at. I have to go and find the person's name. But every single deal, I mean, honestly, if I showed you like our deal book for South LA, it's all KW deals. And so it's kind of funny. So it's amazing sitting here with you all, because you all launched us into LA and we weren't even partners. So I think it can play a huge role, because if you think about the kinds of assets I'm showing students, I'm not showing them some 200 Class A asset in Los Angeles, because that's not going to feel achievable to them where they are when they start the course. What does feel achievable is when they're looking at, a duplex or a fourplex or an eightplex. And in many cases, I mean, we found those assets with you all in Los Angeles. And so I think that there's a huge opportunity to showcase more of your opportunities through the work that we're doing.
Okay. Jasmine asks, would you love to hear the success rates in regards to how many students have entered the real estate industry after being a part of this program? And I'd like to tie to that, talking about your metrics in general. How do you measure success for both your students, but also success for a partnership?
Yeah, so a couple things. So we have two types of students, or really three if you include military veterans. So for high school students, I mean, the metric is really just kind of building interest in real estate. A lot of that metric is around mentoring and hours of engagement. And that's with typically a school partner that's very much focused on creating an entrepreneurial path or project-based learning for students. When it comes to our college program, we make the statement it's about a strong first job, not just a strong job in real estate, because some of our students will use this to become a doctor and then also buy real estate, as part of incremental income. And so we target typically greater than 70% rate of students getting a job within 1 year. I think we've wildly exceeded that. We'll see how the pandemic, impacts it. But I think where we have found success is one thing, is if you're Brookfield, for example, because they met us in 2018 and then, a year later they agreed to hire 4 of our students as summer interns. And they let us pick the students. The reason why they did that is because we're like an outsourced training program, right? I mean, they're sponsoring us, but we're training them with Brookfield people. And so they're getting this amazing look into student talent, not just the team they're backing, but every competition is typically in a small city, 3 teams. In a big city like tonight, we've got 14 teams, across the next 2 days. So you're seeing all that talent as well. And so I think, for our students, they're getting a chance to learn something interesting, apply to a real deal, and then they're working with sponsoring companies who are just seeing their talent. So by the time they come and interview, they kind of know you already. They've seen your work. They've seen you participate for typically 4 rotations. And I think it helps both the student, but also it helps the sponsoring company a lot, because sometimes you need to see talent in action, speaking your language to really buy into it. And so we love the Zoom-based nature of our work now, because I can invite someone from KW LA or KW Denver or what have you, and they can look at students that are being sponsored in Newark. And so I think the big opportunity going forward is I can showcase you talent nationally, right? By you just sort of popping in. And for our students, I think it makes the matchmaking process that much easier for them.
Okay. So I think we don't have no other questions. If anyone has any other questions, please go ahead and put them in the box. Okay, Jamela said, have you considered developing a program from adults that need assistance in starting a new life? For example, ex-felons and those who are working poor that are on programs.
Yeah, so in terms of ex-felons, what we've done, we tried it twice, right? So we tried it in Detroit. But we couldn't quite get it going. In Detroit, I actually wanted to go into a prison and teach the course for folks before they left, because I think it's so important to give you the bridge coming out so you have greater confidence. But obviously the challenge is it's just tough to navigate it in some ways. But we did a presentation to a mayor last week, and one of his interest areas was, working with ex-felons. And so we're working on that. The key is, though, we're an education company. We need corporate sponsors. So you've got to find a sponsor who really wants to support that work. And I think that's completely possible. But I think in some cases, you would have construction firms that might support a program like that. So we haven't found the right sponsor, but I'm fully committed to that work because I think it's a massive opportunity. So we'd love to have a discussion if you all know of sponsors you might have interest in it.
Okay, excellent. How quickly can we move on this? And what would be the kind of timeline that you envision if we wanted to move forward?
Yeah. So I'll give you an example. So I never planned on launching Washington, D.C. this year, but a developer came to us in late May, early June to say, we're working on a deal with Howard. We'd love to kind of activate this, but our deal isn't finished yet. And so I said to them, well, you can't take hope to a historically black college. They operate upon reality. And so I went and found three corporate sponsors, 3 great ones, PGIM, Hines, and a firm called Aria. And we were up and running with the class by August, right? And not just a class, my Howard class is 30 students, average GPA 3.6, 60% women,
top 10 women's GPA 3.84, top 10 overall student GPA 3.9. And we did that basically in 60 days. And so we can move extraordinarily quickly. What I always tell folks is that if you really want it to be impactful, you want to kick off at the beginning of an academic semester. So for now, you want to kick off at the beginning of spring, because if you want to support students in getting internships or jobs, you need to do it sort of kick off after MLK weekend, have them go through a process, and then you have employers kind of coming in, judging, et cetera, who are preparing for their summer hiring. So it's less about how quickly we can move. You just want to tie it to the beginning of a semester or the beginning of the summer.
Okay. Okay. And so we're thinking outside the box,
Yeah.
and definitely thinking that there's going to be curriculum specific to residential purchases that we would need to develop and work with you. How outside the box can we go and deviate from the model that you have, or not deviate from the model that you have?
I think you can. I mean, so beyond new cities that we're launching in the spring, we're partnering with WeWork to launch a new leasing program. And that's going to be across 4 markets: London, New York, LA. I think they're figuring the last market, Atlanta. We'll probably involve Beijing or China as well, because there's so much activity happening in China that connects with US universities. And then we're doing something with a hedge fund called Annaly Capital, where they're all about residential CMBS or residential MBS. And so we're launching a financial markets program with them, and we're building the curriculum from scratch with them. And so you can go outside of the box. What I would say for you all is that I think our current program would only need tweaks, because so much of, I mean, in certain cases, we're studying duplexes or fourplexes. So, I mean, like, it's a little bit different, but like, it's not a whole lot different, right? And so I think we could work with you all and have a curriculum easily in place by the end of this year and ready to kick off at the first of the year. I think it's what we do well. I mean, think about it. I'm not a real estate guy by background. I bought companies, but we built this in a robust way, and we feel pretty confident about building curriculum.
Okay. What would you say our marching orders are then at this point?
I mean, I think, pick a market or several markets that you have some passion for. Let's commit to, a few markets, and then let's go. I mean, because I think that what's unique here is that we have a chance to launch with you all a whole new residential offering. I think that's really exciting for the marketplace. The marketplace knows our work from a commercial standpoint. I think there's a chance to sort of really innovate in a really interesting way, like what we're doing with WeWork, where we're marketing something new that I think will be fresh and interesting. And I think the PR and storytelling will be stronger because we're expanding. I also think because there's something we're launching with Freddie Mac at the first of the year that has a residential piece to it, I think that it will go well with what we're doing with them.
Okay. Valerie asked, how many markets can we launch at once?
I mean, so the most that we've done in a single quarter has probably been 4. Because I think for me, it's not very difficult launching one market or 2. What's difficult is always getting a corporate partner aligned in time to get to a school early. So for example, like in launching DC, doing this, I mean, like basically recruiting students in summertime is extraordinarily difficult, right? Because they're doing 80 other things and it's a pandemic, right? And historically, Black colleges are not simple organizations to work with. I love them, but like administratively, they're under-resourced. So I would say that you can launch 4 or 5 markets simultaneously. The key is giving me enough visibility to market to students end of this semester, right? Early next semester, because that's what gets you the best talent.
Got it. Got it. Excellent.
Mm.
Anything?
Cedric, a quick question. Would you be able to share with us how much it costs to sponsor one student in 1 year?
Yeah, so I mean, it's $2,500 a student. So a team is always 10 students, $25,000 for a team. And so the metric we always use is that, I mean, we're always trying to get it to a place where it's similar to a 3 credit hour course at a community college. That's what we're always benchmarking against. Zoom helps us a ton, right? Because now we can cut out some of the travel costs that made that really challenging from before.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Anyone have any other questions they would like to throw out now? Nope. Cedric, any parting words?
No, thank you all. I mean, I think the opportunity here is not just for our students, but I think when great companies engage in this work, frankly, they model the behavior that others can follow. So I think what's so exciting with you all is that it can become a model for other institutions who are saying great words on TV, but they're struggling with putting it to action. So my aspiration is to, one, do it with you all, do it well, but have it be a model for some of your peers.
Thank you so much, Cedric. We're so grateful and appreciative of your time and just the work that you have done within the communities. And we're seeing the impact. And I know that we would love to figure out how to strengthen and be a part of this. So thank you.
Thank you all for the time. All right, y'all be well.
Be sharing a little, we'll be debriefing more internally, and then Cedric will come back to you with some next steps in the coming weeks.
Great. Thank you all for the time.